Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. Strength and growth come only through continuous effort and struggle. Napoleon Hill. My good friend is coming on today, the Culture Matters podcast. Christopher Summers, the man, the myth himself. 16 plus, maybe 17 plus years ago, he started in real estate after having a background, I know, in financial services, CPA, ended up in real estate and one of the top, not just agents, but leaders of a team in the Philadelphia greater Philly area, investor, giver and teacher and friend, and always a real easygoing guy that will help anybody, especially me. We've had some nice coffee meetings and always been kind and supportive of the Culture Matters movement. So thanks for coming on, and I can't wait to pick your brain today.
Jay, mad respect for you, mad respect for Culture Matters, and it's an honor to be on here. I mean, I think your topic, what you talk about, is relevant, in any economy, but probably even more so now. But yes, thank you for having me.
I want to know, what do you mean? Why now? Why?
Well, I mean, let's face it, like times are tough, things are hard. If we talk more about real estate, the real estate industry, not as much the real estate market, although prices are starting to drift down, is in a recession. Transactions, in the real estate industry are down 40 to 50% year over year. So what does that mean, for realtors? A lot are dropping out of the market. Mortgage people, they're struggling. Title companies, home inspectors, appraisers. It's a big industry, and everyone's really struggling right now. So for the people that run offices, teams, or even solo realtors, like the culture, who you surround yourself with, what you're doing day to day, that matters so much more now, than when things are like really kind of quote easier, if that makes sense.
Yeah, why do you think when let's just say when things are easier or we're reacting to all the opportunities that is it that we're not thinking about these things, or how do you break that down? What do you think?
I mean, I think we're always thinking about those things, because like, if you're excellent or if you're good at whatever industry you're in, or if you're an athlete, or if you're like when I was younger, I played tennis, right? And I was a really good tennis player, but I became better, when I played against people that were better than me. And I think, in whatever industry you're in, you really want to surround yourself with like-minded people, excellent people that might kind of push you a little bit, challenge yourself, instead of kind of like being like on an island. And I think that's kind of like with COVID, like people just kind of ended up on their own island. Could have had the best culture, but like if you're working from home, it might be hard. So I think to get through these difficult times,
Mm.
energy, synergy, collaboration, who you're talking to, who you're spending time with, I think matters that much more, than when quote things are easier. Not that it's just as important, I think, bigger picture too. Does that
How
make
do you
sense?
keep your energy up in times that get more difficult?
I mean, it's a challenge. Like sometimes it might go down. I'm not perfect. I think we all kind of struggle to a certain extent with whatever it might be, depression, anxiety,
Mm.
just stagnation. But with what I do, like I was just at the gym earlier, squeezing in a workout, before, meeting with you, just to kind of like get my energy up a little bit. It was kind of like a long day with appointments. So what I try to do is I try to go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. I try to do yoga once a week. And speaking of books, people should probably read your book. Yeah, but I try to read. I like the quote 10 pages a day kind of thing. It keeps it simple. So if I'm reading self-development books, that kind of like keeps my mind. Like, it's hard to have action without mindset, right? So
Mm.
these things are really good for mindset.
How many times a week do you work out when you're in the rhythm?
4 to 5 times a week.
So someone's listening to this and saying, how the heck is he doing that? I don't have that much going on. So how are you doing that? How do you get in the
But
gym 4 times a week and do all the things you're doing and build the business you're building?
I mean, that's an excellent question, but I think I feel guilty like if I'm not doing that.
Hmm.
And I know like my initial thought for whatever it is I don't want to do. Yeah, in real estate, maybe it's a little bit more lead gen or calling people, or maybe it's like, doing tax work or whatever. It's very easy to say, I'm too fucking busy. Excuse the language. I'm too busy,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like if you take a step back and kind of like track your time, maybe myself, I spend too much time on social media. I spend too much time watching news or whatever it might be. I think there's always a chunk of time in there, that if you take it away from here, that's
Mm.
kind of not productive, you could easily channel it here. And even like if someone goes to the gym for 30 minutes, right? That's better than zero, or if you can't make it to the gym, do some push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups at home, whatever it is that can kind of like just help build that energy. I don't think it's difficult for people to like time block, and really put that in, or even put it in your calendar before your appointments, and you can schedule around it. It's not like a lot of time to make yourself better. You know what I mean?
What are your thoughts on trainers?
I mean, I think if someone needs a trainer, awesome. Like for me, like when I go to the gym, I am getting bigger. I'm getting a little
Yeah,
bigger.
you're in great shape.
Yeah, thank you. It's like my workouts aren't that hard, right? It's not like when I go in, I'm like sweating, panting when I leave. I wouldn't mind stepping it up, and if someone needs a trainer for accountability and commitment, great. But why not maybe try to save some money and be accountable to yourself and be
Mm.
committed to yourself? Or maybe it's a friend like you, Jay. Hey, have an accountability partner, even if you're not going to the gym together, where at the end of the week, hey, how many times you go to the gym, whatever, 4 or 5, maybe have a friendly bet, $20, $50, $100, whatever it is that motivates you, great. And if someone really needs that extra element, okay, nothing wrong with getting a trainer. You know what I mean?
I made a commitment to do 100 push-ups every day for 100 days starting July 2nd. And yeah, and I did miss 3 days. And it ends October 10th. So I got 50 more to do today. And I dedicated it to Mike because he, remember in the pandemic, he was doing those push-ups every day or
Yeah, man. Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time. But I did miss days, and I don't want to lie to myself about that. But that was something that
And if you think about that, like, and sometimes people are so hard on themselves, they'll be like, "Oh my God, I missed 3 days." Where the flip side is, I don't know the exact days. You went 47 out of 50 if you're at day 50.
yeah.
And that's and it's something like that to kind of challenge yourself and focus on the positive, because I think it's very easy for all of us. If there's anything negative that we start to focus on, that puts more risk on. Oh fuck, I missed 3 days, maybe I won't do tomorrow, and maybe don't do next day. That it's real, that trend is going to keep going, or it could like easily go like that too. So, but kudos to you on that.
Thanks. When did yoga come into your life, and why is that something that someone of your success would even take seriously? I mean, yeah.
I'd say about I don't know. I'm getting a little older, Jay, but I look good from my age, I think.
Yeah,
But like,
I was preparing and I was not. I'm not going to speak for you, but dude, you look like a lot younger.
well, thank you. Well, I got the hat on, I got the black t-shirt,
And
little
by the
things
way,
like
for anyone
that.
listening to this, I hope they don't think he's not 80, geez, but he
Right.
just looks a lot younger.
I'm in my 50s, so well, thank you. Yeah, like it might have been like 15 years ago, 18 years ago. I was really struggling with headaches, migraines, stomach nonsense, and I didn't really know what to do. So like I got like I was drinking soda, so I got that out of my lifestyle. I went gluten free for a time, and then I just started doing a lot of yoga because it just kind of helped up here, and it did help mitigate some like a lot of those headaches and whatnot. So, but since then, it kind of like it's something that I really enjoy doing. I don't do it a lot now, but like I could always do more. But just doing it once a week to do a little meditation, some breathing, some stretching, really kind of like I think this helps my mood and my mindset and whatnot.
When you started, where were you at in your life? The business of real estate.
I pretty much had just started real estate, so I was just kind of like on the upswing of like building a team, but with stress and whatnot, and I was just getting like a lot of
Oh, I mean, no, I mean going all the way back to like 2004, 5 when you started. Was that when you started the business?
Yeah, I got my real estate license in 2004. So, I guess, yeah, we're going close to 20 years here. Time
Did you?
flies when you're having fun.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's a big deal. Were you starting in a new career completely alien to the business?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, like my story is pretty unique, Jay. Like, I mean, you mentioned the background. I did have like the complementary skill set with like, being a past CPA, being a stockbroker. So, in real estate, you need to have sales skills and, picking up the phone, dealing with rejection, building relationships. But in 2004, I didn't have really any real estate experience. I had investment experience and basic knowledge, but I kind of like, a friend of mine who I joined his team was like, "Hey, Chris, why don't you get into real estate?" I had nothing else going on at the time. Like the internet crisis blew me out of the stock market per se.
wow.
And I'm like, okay. So I started doing real estate, in Philly, without, I don't have any family in Philly. I was just kind of like bouncing back from a downtime. I didn't really have, like a ton of, like they always talk about sphere of influence in real estate. I didn't have much of that either. I had, stockbroker clients in different states, but that did nothing, for
Wow.
Philly. So to be able just to kind of dive in and build something from zero, I take a lot of pride in that. And then for anyone watching this, people can really do whatever they want. So I mean, and at the time, I was in my early 30s, when I did that to like build a new career.
So the first 90 days, 180 days, were you hitting the phones? And you
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a little bit different back then. Yeah, there was like floor shifts where there's not a lot of floor shifts now.
4 shifts, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So literally, I would go around the entire office. I'd be like, "Hey, if anyone doesn't want their floor shift, I would take it."
No
And
way.
and not for nothing, I would get some days I would get floor shifts all day, like 9 to 5. And to me, that seemed normal because prior to that, the stock market was open 9:30 to 4. And hey, what better way to have people calling in, hey, I want to invest or whatever. So it was a great way just to speak to a lot of people and kind of like get things going. A lot of people might not want to do floor shifts now, but to me, it's like anytime you have the opportunity to meet people and speak with people, that's an opportunity for a relationship, right?
And did you ever suffer from the fear of rejection?
I mean, I think everyone does to a certain extent, right? But like, there if you have past sales experience, and when someone looks to join our team, that's like the first thing I look into. Like what have they done prior, right? A lot of people might have zero sales experience, and that it's going to be harder for them. But I love like, there's some books out there, you know, from no to yes, or just sayings like, whether it's Zig Ziglar, the more no's you get, the more yeses you get. And really, what does that mean? You just need to like speak with people, build relationships, and so forth. There's always going to be rejection, but the people that deal with rejection better, no matter what the industry it is, it
Mm.
could be real estate. I mean, basically everything is sales related to a certain extent. Those are the people that are going to excel, because of, you know, they just have some qualities that works with them. And if you have confidence in what you're doing, like I have confidence I could help Jay, make some investments in real estate. Jay's looking to buy in Philly. If
Yeah.
you have a house you're thinking about selling, if you come in with the point of confidence, if someone says no, okay, well, maybe they might be interested later, and then if they are, you can like, build a pipeline per se.
So let's say, yeah, we're gonna invest in real estate now. What's our plan?
Well, I mean, everything depends. It's like, if you're a stockbroker, you kind of drill down, what the goals are for each person, right?
What the goal?
And then depending on, each person, what their liquid assets might be, what other holdings they might have. Some people are very experienced in real estate, so they kind of already know, hey, let's, maybe buy 2 or 3 properties in 2024, whatever it might be. But then you can kind of, the key is really to asking questions, listening,
Hmm.
and then maybe tailor something that kind of, is specific, for Jay. And I think when people, get the fact that you're listening to them, and you're not maybe just trying to stuff something, down their throat, then it starts to become a little bit more consulting versus selling.
Did you go into the business looking at yourself as that advisor, or did that develop over time?
I think it developed a little bit over time, but I already had it in me to a certain extent, from that past skill set, being a financial consultant, CPA. Like if you're able to offer something to someone that has value, and the people, and if that's what they're looking for, then it's just a matter of, tailoring something, that makes sense. If someone's not looking for it, well, that's different. But at the end of the day, the nice thing about real estate, for the most part, each, like if when you're in a coffee shop, you're out to dinner, the table over here, everyone's talking about real estate to a certain extent, and everyone needs housing at some point, whether they need to lease, whether they need to buy, if they own a home. Obviously the trend now is, people are moving to the burbs. I call it burb mania. That's the trend. Burb
Are you seeing that?
Oh yeah, and it kind of sucks. Like we're losing like a lot of great people. We've lost a
Really?
lot of great people in Philly, but then there's a lot of new people kind of coming in too, and hopefully that new blood, can add a lot of energy. Because like
What's the energy like now?
It's low. It's really low. Maybe a little depressing at times, but Alan Dom, is a good friend of mine. Kind of talks about, the city goes in cycles and whatnot. And we're certainly in this downward cycle. But if you have confidence and belief, that things will turn around and change, which I believe that they do, then you could talk intelligently why it makes sense to buy versus lease. You could talk intelligently why it makes sense, to invest, in some properties instead of being in cash or in the stock market, whatever it might be.
Yeah, for those that, because this is going to go out in a time that is leaning towards the more difficult, or at least perception, as well as some very real realities there. So why, for those that don't do real estate, invest in real estate, why can that be a valuable asset class for people in business, for our business listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you don't want to invest in real estate, I get it. Well, then, the best investment might just be, owning instead of renting, if you're leasing, and you could start there, and if you're young, maybe you get a roommate, to offset that mortgage payment, because the climate to buy right now is solid. There's not as much competition like there was a year ago, where there's multiple offers. I know interest rates suck. But historically, they're still quote low. And most mortgage companies are a lot of them that we work with are offering like programs where, hey, if interest rates dip in the next 2 years, you can refi for free. The mortgage interest deduction, is a tax deduction. So every month that someone's paying, their mortgage payment, the bulk of it is interest. That's a tax deduction. Instead of just writing that lease check each month, A, where there's no deduction, and B, where there's no buildup of equity. And over time,
what does the deduction mean for people that don't even understand how that benefits them?
Yeah, like if you don't have other deductions, there's like the standard deduction that you take for your taxes. I forget exactly what it might be. Maybe it's 7,000 a year, 5, 6, more if it's married. But if you have a $2,000 mortgage payment where close to $2,000 a month is interest, 2,000 times 12, that's 24,000, right? So whatever your income is, especially when we're in a high tax environment with Fed, state, and city, those deductions help. No one really talks about the mortgage interest deduction as a benefit of owning real estate as a homeowner. But I think it should be part of that equation.
Why not? Why not?
I don't know. That's a good question.
We need more of you out there.
Yeah, if you speak to the Summers team, you will.
The CPA in you. What about, when did you first start acquiring real estate as an intent to be the management and investor of it?
I mean, I think it took a couple years for that, get some experience. Like, when you're in the industry, right? And I kind of like the Peter Lynch quote. I don't know if you know Peter Lynch.
I love him.
Yeah, like
just did a podcast about it yesterday.
It's a serendipity. I love the word serendipity. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, invest in what you know. And for the people that are realtors or mortgage people, title, what you're in the industry, like, when a property is listed in Fishtown or Fort Richmond or wherever it is, that, hey, this is a good deal. I can certainly bring it to my clients, and I bring most of them to the clients, but sometimes I'm like, you know what? Let me do this, for myself, right? You know what it's going to lease for. You pretty much know what updates are needed. And I think over time, once you do one or two, it starts to become, even that much more of what you know. And
Mm,
again, I mean, I'm going to quote Alan Dom again. I quote Alan Dom a lot because he's one of my mentors. And this is
wow.
for the people that are in real estate or in sales. Like, he talks about, you make your income selling real estate, right? The commission, buying, selling, whatever it might be, but you could really build wealth owning real estate. And again, if you're not making real estate investments, like, for every house I'm selling in Fishtown these days, if the people bought it 10 years ago, I mean, it's probably at least 100% return.
Really?
If they bought it 5 years ago, it might be 50% plus, so you can kind of see, and I take a lot of that or credit in that, like at the Summers team and KW, like, we really help every homeowner in a lot of neighborhoods, build equity, by continuing, to sell properties at higher amounts. So imagine, instead of having one property, you have five. Instead of having, or like home, imagine instead of five, you have 50.
Mm,
And then for the most part, like, I know, like, a lot of people watch, like, the fix and flip shows on the real estate reality shows, and that happens sometimes. I've certainly have done, a lot of those over the years, but I think the bigger reward, is the buy, hold, rent, get some cash flow. It's better for tax purposes, build equity over time. And there's tremendous value and opportunity in that.
what was it like in the Great Recession? You were in the business, if I do the math right, only a couple of years. You were banging the phones and the floor time. I'm thinking like you were in there 3-4 years by then. What was that like? I missed it. I wasn't around.
Yeah, well, we're in another recession right now. This one I think is worse than that one to a certain degree.
Really? Oh, I'd love to
Yeah,
know what you think on that.
I think the main difference is because back then, even though it was hard, right, it was super painful. Sellers were down substantial amount of percentage year after year. And a lot of them are like, oh, you know what, Chris, I'm not going to sell. I'm going to lease instead. And you had accidental landlords. And then, like, a year later, their property's down another 10 or 15%. So sometimes that leasing strategy is good, but sometimes if their plan is to sell quickly, it might not be good short term. And there was a lot of pain. There was foreclosure, short sales, but there was still a decent amount of transactions, right? And for us, like, we, not to say we took advantage of it, but to help people at the time, like, we were one of the few brokers and agents and teams that really knew how to do short sales. So, like,
Back then.
back then we would blog and, do an article about a successful short sale. So if someone Googled Philadelphia short sale, Northern Liberties short sale, oftentimes they would just kind of, find us on the internet. So, like, we were still doing transactions, and we kind of, like, amped up our marketing where other agents kind of pulled back their marketing. So, as it started to turn, we came out of that, like, that much stronger with the market share.
Do you think it helped slingshot your career even being
Yeah,
ready for that?
definitely. Because, like, once people start to know you, they see your name a little bit more, it could really help, kind of catapult. And I mean, I forget, like, the big guys that kind of, maybe it's Warren Buffett or whatnot, when there's blood on
Oliver.
the, yeah, there you go. There's blood on the streets, that's the opportunity. Or, recessions is when millionaires are made. So, or as Jim Cramer would say, there's always a bull market somewhere. So,
Yeah.
during the down times, that's where I think opportunities can really come into play. But, it does take a tremendous amount of work and effort. Nothing, good comes easy. The shortcuts always
What
get the
was
easy.
your work ethic like then?
I mean, we were doing a ton of content, Jay. So, we were maybe pumping out, one or two blogs a week, if not more. At that point, a lot of people weren't doing videos yet. Yeah, so we're kind of like pioneers with videos, and now it's a little bit saturated. But yeah, like back then, the work ethic was, I mean, we're kind of all in and day out.
Is it a career where you would say 6, 7 days a week is, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, it can be somewhat intentional where someone wants to do 4 or 5 and just pack it all in if you're very, efficient, or, if you work less Monday through Friday, allocate, some time, Saturday and Sunday, to make it work. And that's definitely, the case now too, because there's so few transactions happening. There's a lot of realtors, I think, I forget the exact, I mean, I'm also past president of GPAR, so I'm connected with
Yes,
GPAR, and I hear that maybe 600 or 700 realtors have already exited GPAR.
really.
And next year is what they call a continuing education year, meaning to renew your license, you have to take classes and whatnot, and maybe spend a little bit more money. So I wouldn't be surprised if, more leave. And, it's hard, right? And that does suck. But for the people that are in the industry, it does kind of give them more opportunity as things turn. It might take a little bit, but there'll be more activity for the people that kind of make it through these difficult times. And I think that's the case with every industry.
How many people are in GPAR total round?
I should know that. I want to say, we might have hit maybe over 4,000 members, and maybe, it's down to 3,500, or maybe it was like 4,500, and maybe it's down to 4,000. But
That could, wow.
yeah, I forget the exact number, but it's it's a good percentage already.
So close to 20% would be they left. That's
I'd,
a signifier. That's an interesting thought. If it was
yeah,
7,
I'd say it might be more like 10% ish.
okay.
But yeah,
Wow.
but either way, I mean, it's a sign of the challenge of today's industry.
Do you see that as opportunity, and if so, why? Or if
I
if
mean,
not, why not?
the same thing kind of happened in the financial crisis too. So maybe it's always good to kind of look at trends. A lot of people exited the industry back then too. I forget. I know transactions were still happening, but it was a very difficult market to to be involved with. But obviously for the people that made it through, not just us or anyone, as things turn, their market share increased.
Hmm.
And I really believe in today's market in Philadelphia, that the pent up demand is really, really starting to brew. But we need help, from with mortgage rates coming down, with inflation coming down. We need help from city council, to have some common sense people on there that are more pro investment, versus regulations that are disinvestment. And I think, for the people that kind of make it through this, it's going to be a huge opportunity, because unfortunately, the mindset of that younger person, instead of why rent when you can own, their mindset has turned to why own when you can lease.
Really?
Yes. And
Oh,
why
I
is
don't know
that?
about that. Why?
I
Yeah.
mean, well, it's public safety. Like if you're in like a large apartment building, right? That has, front door security, and you have the amenities already, the pool, the gym or whatever it might be, the public safety concern starts to go down a little bit. Maybe there's parking there or whatnot, or maybe, they're not in that building, but they're still a little concerned. Hey, do I want to like own in Philly, or am I only going to be here for a few years, and then it's unknown, and this housing market is crazy, and these interest rates are so fucking high, and the city has raised real estate taxes, so the affordability, is really squeezing people. So they're like, well, screw it, let me just lease. And if you see a lot of the construction, especially in neighborhoods like Northern Liberties, South Kensington, you don't see a lot of stuff that's being built for sale. You're seeing large apartment buildings that are built to lease,
Really?
and they're amazing buildings. So, but I think as things start to turn and people are like, you know what, I'm paying $2,500 in rent, 2,000, 1,800, 3,000, whatever it is. And maybe our new mayor and the new police commissioner, maybe work with with the DA, or maybe really start to do something, where we have like a no tolerance policy on crime and really start to improve the city of Philadelphia again. So it's one of the best places to live in, versus the prognosis of like, I might get carjacked, I might get robbed, whatever, and that public safety concern starts to go down, then I think the question is going to be, once again, where it should be, why lease when I can own? And at that point, there's going to be a huge demand. So for the people that are, selling real estate now, if they position themselves accordingly, maybe it takes 6 months, maybe it takes a year, maybe it takes 2 years, then that will kind of pick up. But then the developers, can start to like do some things where they're doing things for sale again, because obviously I could understand why, the trend, building things to lease makes sense, because that's where the demand is.
Wow. Hey, I guess how important is that political dialogue when it comes to real estate? It seems like it's a big piece that people don't talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I would, back in the day, I would kind of talk about, I like the word catalyst, right? Like the catalyst is something that will determine, if something has a greater chance to succeed or worse. And I would kind of talk about, like the mayor's race is a catalyst for either pro real estate or not. If Helen Gim would have become mayor, that would have been a bad catalyst. And if you know Helen, hey, bad respect for Helen. She talks a great game, and there's a lot of people that love her. But her real estate report card is horrible. So, being that it's going to be Sherrill Parker, a little bit of an unknown. That's a start. We have city council elections in November. Hopefully we get a makeup of people that have a little bit of, whether it's pro growth, common sense. Not too much of a huge regulatory environment where we're causing people to not invest in the city, where we're having companies not come into the city, and instead they're going to Jersey, Bucks County, or Montgomery or wherever. Those are job opportunities that can come in. The more jobs that come in, obviously that's a huge catalyst to the real estate market. Like we really rely on eds and meds, but we really need to attract higher paying jobs. Most of the growth in Philadelphia has been more like the lower paying jobs. We need city council and an environment where companies are coming in, jobs are being made, and people want to stay in the city versus leave. Or the people that graduate from Penn and Drexel, let's keep them here instead of them graduating and going to Austin, Texas, or Florida, or wherever. So I think, obviously, there's that pendulum that kind of goes back and forth. So I think that pendulum at some point really has to kind of get back to let's make Philadelphia. We have the foundation to make it awesome. So we just need leadership to help with that. If not, like sometimes the economy is so strong as it is, like the leaders could screw up and things will be okay. But it could certainly be a lot better, with the right leaders. And I'm not talking about Democrat, Republican. I'm just talking about
people with vision.
Just vision, innovation, being realistic, not over promising and under deliver. Like the tax abatement is a good example, right? I was president of GPAR, right? When there was like this huge talk to eliminate the tax abatement. For the people that don't know this, developer could build a property, apply, and the taxes. It doesn't mean that there's no taxes. They would just be frozen for 10 years on the improvements, but the homeowners would pay taxes on the vacant land. And the assessment on the land kept going up and up. So it was still a decent amount. And think about all the sales that occurred. Each sale is a transfer tax that comes into the city. But I remember, like, with all that talk about the abatement, the talk was either to abolish it or to have a graduated down abatement, which is what ultimately happened. But I remember asking the city council people, Jay, eye to eye, like, hey, why are we doing this? What's the point of it? And what are we going to think when the economy changes? And basically, it was just a lot of blank faces. No one could really answer the question. Fast forward 2 or 3 years, the economy changed, and new construction is way down, from what it was before.
And would you say that because of that was a disincentive to continue to which could help mitigate some of this slowdown?
Absolutely. Like developers might have done a little bit more. It's a little bit more advantageous for a homeowner. If that was still in play now, maybe there are some things that are being built for sale instead of for lease. For each sale that occurs, that's 4% plus.
Yeah.
That's going to the city and state. So with 40% less transactions, there's a ton of revenue, not coming into the city and state. And if I recall, like a lot of that transfer tax revenue would go to the schools. So for all those people that were like, hey, let's eliminate abatement because it's not fair, the schools are suffering. Well, think about all this less tax revenue that's not coming in that could have benefited the city as a whole. So we just need more of that big picture, kind of understanding, and to be able to communicate and convey that, because the message at the time sounded great. Like if you knew nothing about the tax abatement, and if you would hear these people speak, you'd be like, that makes sense. Let's get rid of that. But the messaging wasn't true. Like we need to have really true messaging and leadership that really knows what's happening, and not to just get votes just for things that sound good to be on city council. And you can take Philadelphia, extrapolate that, coast to coast.
Do you have a vision to run someday for one of these seats?
Well, you can see I'm getting a little passionate, right?
Yeah, well, this is awesome. I'm glad we have this recording, like, for the future.
And plus, I'm even a little bit tired today, but this is important stuff. I mean, I don't know, like people have asked me about that, and I don't really like a lot of the bureaucracy and the tape and whatnot, but maybe in the future. I was asked about a city council seat before things came into play. I just wasn't really ready to make that commitment, Jay. But I know that there's a lot of good people out there that could do that. We just need more of them, and we need a better messaging across the board. Because like people talk about Philadelphia and poverty, which is horrible. Poverty is horrible in the city, and it's gotten worse, right? So whatever the decisions and the policies that have been put into play, it hasn't worked. So for people to kind of take a step back and like, let's really kind of wrap our minds together and be unified, and really come up with things that really make sense for the city to grow again. We're the 5th or 6th largest city in the country.
Yeah, and was it true that the crime rate went up?
But the crime rate is like catapulted.
What a shame.
So like I feel like Sherelle Parker, the new police commissioner, I feel like that's going to be a lot better in 2024, and that's step one, right? And then step two might be maybe some tax changes for self-employed people, business people, whatever it might be. I don't think it's going to be that difficult to make things a lot better, and obviously that benefits everyone, right? This isn't like it only benefits us. Like we need things that will benefit everyone. And then like today, for example, most smaller investors don't want to invest in the city.
I just had a meeting on Friday, actually, with a deal. I won't say who it is, but they're scared. They have about under 100 units, and they were nervous. They're doing out around the city.
I mean, think about this, for example.
Sure.
We have a lot of clients in the last 10, 15 years that maybe they acquired 2 properties, 5, 10, 15. But as soon as like kind of COVID ended and leases are ended, instead of those investors releasing those properties, they've sold them. And then who bought them? Owner occupants. So at the same time, the amount of rental properties is going down, and city council is trying to put in policies in place that makes it more affordable. Rental prices are going up.
Yes.
Rental prices are going up. But so like a lot of the investors, like maybe when a tenant leaves, they're calling me like, oh, Chris, I'm ready to sell my property. My tenant's leaving, instead of them releasing the property, right? Or instead of buying more. So I'd like to get that group of investors back, because otherwise, if not, we're only going to be left with the large conglomerates, Post Brothers.
You're seeing the bigger institutions invest. Correct. And is that because they're seeing the rents as a hedge against inflation? So they have an interest in the bigger stuff. And instead of, just help me if I'm wrong, and instead of build to sell, they're building to lease.
100%. I mean, the rental prices keep going up, so from a cash flow standpoint, those numbers, really work.
And that doesn't necessarily help the culture of the city. If it's just too much, the pendulum swinging too much in one direction where it's build to lease, you also need build to own, because home ownership creates family, creates the dream, the individual responsibility. I'm kind of just curious.
No, I mean,
you need it to be both.
You're 100% right. Like when the home ownership percentage starts to decrease, so does the quality of life. And when quality of life decreases, basically values can go down too. Yeah, the large buildings bringing in people is very beneficial to, the businesses, small businesses, retail, restaurants, and so forth. But yeah, we really need that mix of both.
Yeah, we don't just want transients, we want instantiation, people that stay in the city.
Correct.
Like, even though we no longer live there, I have so many relationships in Philly. We're a part of philanthropic things in Philly, but that's because of the relationship that we have. But the best thing would be if we had stayed there, because culture
matters.
Yeah, like, dang, I love this conversation. It's a breath of fresh air. It's exciting to hear that somebody like yourself is caring about these things and bringing this energy into this market, because we're, Philly is still a part of our heart, and we're there all the time and doing business and things and care about the city. And it excites me that, and for this reason, I guess, like, do you think that the opportunity is, if you hustle down hard now, anyone listening to this, you yourself, in the next few years, we can get some of these things, that pendulum to swing back in the other direction, there'll be a lot of opportunity for whoever worked hard now. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think in recessionary environments for industries, it's like that creates the most opportunities for when things change. And I think if you're, and I struggle with this too, I think we all do, Jay, if we're too focused on the change and the external stuff, we're not focused on the internal and what we can do today and the small wins. And I love the quote, I don't know who said it, maybe you, the small things done consistently over time lead the big results. Or, focus on what you can control, not what you can't. And what can we do every day? Show up, make our calls, emails, answer the fucking phone, get back to people, build the relationships, and really kind of like, build all this. So when things do change, I mean, instead of them going to broker ABC, they're more than likely, be contacting Chris or the summer team.
Yeah. In closing, how can people reach you? Why should they work with you and your team? And what's the call to action?
Yeah, well, I think, we try to make the process stress-free. We used to have a tagline, delivering real estate happiness. So to kind of make things, friendly, fun, have, the experience, the expertise. But the website is thesummersteam.com. We're all over, the internet, Instagram, the Summers Team, or affiliate Realty, Facebook, the Summers Team of Philadelphia. I'm very easy to find. But yeah, people should reach out to us if they need help sell, lease, buy, develop, fill in the blank. More Philly focused. If it's in the burbs, I would refer. But yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity for a little vanity sales pitch in there.
I'd love to have you back soon, my friend.
Cool.
Thank you for coming on. We'll see you all in the next episode of the Culture Matters podcast.